Hi guys! How is everybody doing? Happy Cinco de Mayo. It is also, where is it? Let me make sure I don't mess this up. It is also Peter Ortiz's birthday, so if he's able to join us today, drop some booms in the chat. Happy birthday to Peter Ortiz. Perfect birthday. And there you go. Look, STS is already getting it going, saying happy birthday, Peter Ortiz, wherever you are. Amanda following the same. Also, YouTube won't show it anymore, but very generously this morning, STS started us off. This is incredibly generous. 20 gifted memberships. You guys that saw it already were already saying thank you. So big thank you to STS. Drop his name as well. And this is going to be, I don't know, just like a casual light stream. Everybody's paying attention to Karen Reed, but we're going to do like a little food philosophy. So last year, right after Cinco de Mayo, an Indiana judge made a ruling that tacos are in fact sandwiches. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to take a look back at that decision last year. We're also going to look at something more recent where a gamer is suing a gaming company because in the game, he's getting slapped with virtual eggs and sandals. And he's suing over the distress that it's causing. So we're going to take a look at these two food cases. We're also going to take a look if an update comes in, which I haven't seen yet, but this morning was Martinez Arnold, the civil forfeiture hearing. There was the hearing in front of Judge Whitaker this morning. I don't see an update. There wasn't a court reporter in attendance unless the parties brought one independently. And I haven't seen anything from, Joseph Papp or anyone at AJC with an update there. But if Whitaker issues an order or there's some update on the docket before we close the stream, we'll take a look at it as well. So let's get into this taco debate. So starting off, clean slate. This all stemmed from like a question. It's going to involve a restaurant. And it's only a circuit court decision, I believe. So technically in the future, if there's ever something that's unanswered, a question that needs to go up to the Supreme Court, for example, for one reason or another, I don't know, maybe this taco sandwich saga could continue some way. I'm not sure what type of constitutional right would come into play, but I would love to hear SCOTUS debate the merits of the arguments that tacos are sandwiches. So just to take a look back at, it's Kitchen Confidential, a really great restaurant worker type sub on Reddit, kicked off is a taco a sandwich debate. So what do you guys think? Like, without thinking too far into it, just on first gut, first instinct, would you call a taco a sandwich? Is it like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle's not a square type of argument? What do you guys think? And if you look through the comments here, someone instantly goes to, I'm not sure, but a hot dog is definitely classified as a taco. And that's like you're getting into the singular shell as like a vessel to hold something else, right? So, a hot dog to me is making a lot more, of a visual comparison there. Joe Fism brought in a new debate that cereal is soup. So like legally, like think if you were an attorney and you needed to make this argument in one direction or another, and you had to defend or fight an argument that cereal is soup, or that cereal is not soup, soup is not cereal, like what would be your opening statement for your arguments? And it's just hilarious stuff to consider. And it really all comes down to philosophy, definitions, what's already in place. Let's see. This guy says, Hatface says, is one piece of bread folded in half with sandwich ingredients still a sandwich? So, late at night, when I'm lazy, sometimes I'll go make a quick cheese sandwich with a single slice of bread and then one slice of cheese. And it's like all square until I fold it. And now that very much looks like a taco. So, this is a good question there. No Celebration says a sandwich would be a torta. Drunk Gary says, yes, I will take no further questions. Case closed. Cathedral Engine says no, because tortilla is not bread. So are we getting into a question of leavening? Let's see. Does it give me more replies here? I think it's being funky. It's just giving me a bunch of McDonald's ads, and I don't want McDonald's. I want tacos. Although, if you didn't hear the news, I think I saw that Taco Bell now has chicken nuggets or chicken strips. So there's that. Back to the full discussion here. Everyone's like, no. Aisha says, nope, it needs to be between 2 pieces of bread. Perfect piece as a taco's not a sandwich, in my opinion. Aisha says, but cereal is, in fact, soup. Now, here's the thing. Say you ask somebody, like, oh, I'm going to go pick up food. Do you want anything? And you're like, yeah, I would love some soup. And then they come back and bring you cereal. Then what? And it's just a whole time. So let's get into some of what happened back in May of last year with this actual legal question. Is a taco a sandwich? An Indiana judge settles the debate. No word on what the judge thinks about hot dogs, though. So we have this article here from May 16th last year by Joseph Lamore. A judge has called a wrap, this is good wordplay, on one tortilla-based case. On May 13th, Craig J. Babe, Superior Court judge in Allen County, Indiana, ruled that tacos and burritos count as, quote, Mexican-styled sandwiches. Now, does this mean that you need to always add the qualifier? Does the qualifier, imagine some type of contract with some type of arrangement for tacos and burritos and other types of sandwiches, and there's different categorizations for the terms and delivery of the different things. And one side starts arguing that it all falls under the sandwich categorization. And the other side's like, no, there's a separate subcategorization. It has to be specified, Mexican-style sandwiches. Could this become an issue? If we were in this district where this judge has set some precedent for us, could this be an issue if we were writing some type of contract for some agreement about our sandwich business? And then the author asks, why did this internet debate make it to a Midwestern county court? Martin Quintana, developer and owner of the famous taco, this is the establishment, needed the ruling in order to complete his latest endeavor, a new restaurant location in a Fort Wayne shopping center. Quote, the court agrees with Quintana that tacos and burritos are Mexican-style sandwiches, and the original written commitment does not restrict potential restaurants to only American cuisine-style sandwiches, Bobe wrote in the ruling. Back in 2022, Quintana was preparing to install a second location of the famous taco restaurant at the shopping center property. Then, a condominium association nearby objected, suggesting the eatery would violate the property's zoning policy. According to the legal filing, Quintana previously signed a zoning agreement that prohibits fast food-style restaurants except for a, quote, sandwich bar-style restaurant, whose primary business is to sell made-to-order or Subway-style sandwiches. So there you go. We're getting into language and agreements and, made-to-order sandwiches. If this taco place is making it to order, can this fall under this allowable criteria? So that's why we're getting a legal argument here. Can this establishment set up shop in the shopping center? Good to see you, Trakisha. Trakisha's just in here laughing. Aisha Kenya says her first question would be, what makes something not soup? It's just like an existential food crisis. Oh my goodness. STS says, so how would a bread bowl concoction meet the criteria? I don't know. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. Oh my goodness. Shout out to Asia Mullen being here for 7 months, coming back in to talk about our Mexican-style sandwich debate. And I'm getting all these food ads. Have I eaten yet? No. This means restaurants like Subway or Jimmy John's are allowed to open in the shopping center. Fast food restaurants like McDonald's, Arby's, and Wendy's are not. Interesting. So burgers are not meeting... Oh, because they're not made to order, though. This might not be... Right? I think the issue here is this isn't... My brain went to burgers and sandwiches on buns. But what's the business model for McDonald's, for Arby's, and Wendy's? You can make customizations, but it's not a made to order, walk down the bar of ingredients and say, I want that, I don't want that, I want that, I want that. The business model is different, right? Where Subway and Jimmy John's, even though they're also making sandwiches, their business model is also made to order. Additionally, any approved restaurant in the shopping center must not have outdoor seating, drive-through service, or sell alcoholic beverages. For months, Quintana and his lawyer had several discussions over the proposed famous taco location with the Fort Wayne Plan Commission. During an October 2022 public hearing, oh my God, is that on YouTube somewhere? Quintana said those public hearings, and I don't know about this specific one, but public hearings can be so contentious sometimes. They get so dramatic over small issues like this. So if that's out there, that's probably great. Quintana said through representation that the dispute over the famous taco had kind of become an argument of, is a taco a sandwich or not? Hoping to amend the agreement if the answer was no. The Plan Commission did not approve the proposed amendment, which meant that the famous taco could not open. So in December 2022, Quintana asked the court to review that decision. 2 years later, the court made its ruling. Can you imagine waiting like 2 years plus to get this taco? It better be the best taco ever. Bobet stated in his decision that the famous taco is permissible under the original agreement Quintana signed. He said the agreement would also technically permit restaurants that serve made-to-order Greek gyros, gyros, Indian non-wraps, or a Vietnamese banh mi if each business followed the restrictions outlined. Here, a famous taco restaurant is encompassed by the terms of the original written commitment, and no amendment was necessary, Bobet wrote in the decision, meaning since he had deduced that tacos and burritos are sandwiches, Quintana was technically always allowed to open the restaurant. The listed lawyers in the filing for the Fort Wayne Plan Commission did not immediately respond to requests for comment. And then John McGauley, a spokesperson for the Allen County Superior Court, tells Today that he and Bobet are prohibited from commenting directly on the case. Still, McGauley did say that the court has become the subject of a lot of attention due to the ruling. Our court has been involved many times in cases that put it in national spotlight, McGauley tells Today. But this is the first one that sparked a national discussion of food, namely what constitutes a sandwich. It's serious business to the parties involved, but the conversations surrounding the case have been a nice change of pace. And I agree. You know, the point in looking at this is it's an interesting legal question that had ramifications for this decision in the shopping center. But it's also just like a casual exercise on words, on communication. There's a book called The Stuff of Thought by Steven Pinker. And I didn't read the whole thing, but I got through the first few chapters. So don't judge me. And I've always thought about it because he underscored the difference in slightly different words and how that slight difference can have big difference in actual meaning and understanding. And sometimes the difference is understood implicitly. We might not understand that we're not consciously thinking of the difference. We just implicitly understand that two different words that are kind of the same mean something very different. The example that he gave that always sticks out to me is the word throw versus toss. Now, both do the same thing with an object, right? A hand is probably moving an object to another place with some type of forced movement, intentional movement. But a throw, we can visualize a throw a little bit more pointed, probably overhand, whereas toss might be a little bit more gentle, might be underhanded. And ever since I heard that comparison, I've always thought about the way people interpret words. What are you guys saying? Yeah, Perfect Peace, the square and rectangle argument. Perfect Peace says, if a taco is a sandwich, is a sandwich a taco? And again, my midnight cheese snack sandwich, where I take the one bread and the one piece of cheese and fold it in like the U shape of a taco. You know, it's not cut. There's no cut on the other side. There's like a solid, well, as much as bread can be solid. It's there's no broken seam. Or what about a sub? Perfect piece. When you guys order a sub, do you like the sub prepare, the sandwich artist, to like leave the inner seam of the bread intact? So it's still one whole piece of bread, it's just split, open, flattened open? Or do you like them to cut it all the way through? And does that make a difference? If you can still call it a taco if you leave the seam intact, does that fit the reverse definition? Is this square still, is the rectangle still a square in that case? And if you cut the seam, is it game over, no taco? So it depends. It depends. And Chloe Albert's Revenge says, all humans are mammals, but not all mammals are humans. There we go. STS, and no surprise here with the actual definition. Noun. An item of food consisting of 2 pieces of bread with meat, cheese, or other filling between them, eaten as a light meal. Well, hold on. I take issue with the definition of sandwich being a light meal. Because I could, a good sub, all I need. All I need, and I will be full. What? Okay, factual lie. We need to get nitty gritty. Good to see you, factual lie. Factual lie says I've never had a taco. So we might need to solve that. And there's so many types of tacos you can make. So like the options are endless. But does this also mean you've never had a sandwich? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh my goodness. Oh. Chloe Albert's Revenge says my favorite sandwich is ice cream. Now, see, this wouldn't... Now, depending on the outer sides of the ice cream sandwich, does this meet the definition of being between 2 pieces of bread? Like, are those, like, soft chocolatey biscuit things, like the traditional rectangle ice cream sandwiches? Are those chocolate pieces technically bread? Or what if it's a cookie witch? If you guys are ever driving, I don't know how far spread Burn Dairy is, but I know Burn Dairy gas stations are, you know, pretty speckled throughout Western New York. If you ever happen to be driving and see a Burn Dairy gas station, like mini mart, go in and please treat yourself to a cookie witch. They are miles beyond what a Toll House cookie witch will get you. You need a Burn Dairy cookie witch. And they have a million varieties. They've got like ones with mint ice cream on the inside. They've got double chocolate. They've got brownie witches. I think they have a red velvet cake witch. So if you ever see a Burn Dairy, please do yourself a favor and stop and get one. But they're called cookie witches, which imply sandwich. So... oh, Charkeisha's trying to open up a whole nother war. She says, is a soft taco even a taco? Listen, we gotta have the corn tortilla versus flour tortilla debate. Yeah, is corn less, a corn-based tortilla less bready than a flour-based tortilla? There we go. Chloe's going for the chocolate chip cookies outside the ice cream sandwich. Oh, what? And there's s'mores sandwiches? Are s'mores sandwiches? Well, technically a graham cracker. Do you define cracker as bread? If you overcook a piece of bread to the point where it becomes a cracker, still bread, right? Oh, okay, so STS says it's it in that's a nice name. This restaurant, it's it, must be real proud of itself. I like it. They have a round version of what we're talking about. So like the chocolate discs. Yeah, Chipwich. Yeah, I think Chipwich is the Toll House, the Nestle Toll House name for it too. I forget. It was one of my favorite things to grab out of, like the top sliding little freezer things with ice cream. I always wanted the cookie sandwich, no matter who made it. So let's see. So Quintana was real happy. And again, yeah, it's serious business to the parties involved, but the conversations surrounding the case have been a nice change of pace, McAuley says. This case would normally provide the ingredients for some meaty food puns, but we won't go there. You just did. You just went there, though. Quintana himself is just happy he gets to move on and open his restaurant, which will join a bridal shop, clothing boutique, and a future skincare studio operated by his daughter in the same shopping center. Nice. So you can go shopping and you can go get your, what's the exact quotation? Mexican style sandwiches. We're glad we're going to be able to open, Quintana tells today.com. We have hundreds of people waiting for that spot to be open. They really love the famous taco, so I'm glad everything is over. Let me see if there's like a video of the opening, the grand opening. Because I bet, like, think about all of that press. I would imagine that was a pretty large gathering for people to check out the grand opening. The one I'm seeing just says set to open. Yes, I don't think I'm sure there's one out there, but it's not coming up in a quick search. Chloe Albert's Revenge says, so where do Uncrustables fall? Yeah, so aren't Uncrustables like peanut butter and jelly burritos then? Because they're like fully closed seams, so maybe those are like peanut butter and jelly burritos. My goodness. So yeah, I do love the debates on what words mean, and I hope everybody hanging out watching this, next time you're ordering or telling somebody you want a taco or a sandwich, I hope this is like a brain worm that pops out and you feel the need to just get really specific, and the other person might not know why. Like, I could really go for some soup today, but I don't want cereal. And then the other person might look at you like not realize why you're specifying it in that manner, because now this is going to be implanted in your head. But yes, is cereal considered soup? And that's the thing. Things don't need to be hot to be soup because there's gazpacho. So, are SpaghettiOs soup? Yeah, and Perfect Peace is leaning on the side of sandwich cookies are not made of two slices of bread. So it doesn't fit that the dictionary definition provided here by STS. So it's a never-ending debate. With that being said, that's kind of settled, at least in terms of that shopping center getting their restaurant. But let's go to another philosophical crisis. There was a story that I heard Penguins or Charlie or Moist Critical, he goes by all three names, do a quick reading of. And I was like, what? So I wanted to look at it. I don't see the filing, so we've got to read a news article on it. This story is about a man, he's a gamer, who's suing a gaming firm over depression and emotional distress and embarrassment because in this game that he's playing, users can virtually slap people. And he's getting slapped with virtual eggs and virtual flip-flops. And he's saying it happened to him over 4,800 times. So let's look at this argument. And, this is happening in another country. So, the laws might be different than what we would have here, depending on what jurisdiction it was filed. Cultural beliefs might be different. And we're dealing with the concept of something virtually happening in a video game that one is willing to play. You're willing to play the game, but the game at this point in time, at least when he made the lawsuit, didn't have an option to toggle on or toggle off this feature that allows other users to throw these virtual things on the screen at you. Is that a problem? Is there a legal argument there? So, a man in China has sued a gaming company claiming he suffers from depression after being virtually slapped more than 4,800 times with in-game items, sparking widespread attention online. Mainland media outlet Xinhua reported that the man, using the pseudonym Chaoben, has been a fan of Three Kingdoms Kill Online for 15 years and holds its highest rank. So this is someone that's very good at this game. Very, very good at this game. Winning a lot. Three Kingdoms Kill Online is a multiplayer battle game set in the Three Kingdoms era, years 220 to 265. Developed by a Hangzhou-based gaming company in eastern China, it was released in 2009. One game involves 4 to 8 players and lasts about 10 to 30 minutes. So they've got a little image here. This is the sandals. This isn't the eggs. You can see some sandals flying across the screen. And nice of them, they blurred out all the usernames. So that was nice of this. It looks like QQ took this photo and blurred out the usernames in the chat. Xiaoben discovered that after each victory, so he's winning, his opponents would throw items like eggs and straw sandals at his avatar, triggering effects like virtual facial slaps. Based on the number of games played, he claimed he was hit with these items more than 4,800 times over the past 6 months. Xiaoben believes that the throwing was a way for opponents to vent their frustration after losing. In a recent game, he endured a virtual slapping that lasted more than 90 seconds. Xiaoben said that because all the players could see the slaps, his dignity was insulted. Quote, and this is translated, I'm assuming. "Every time I'm hit with eggs, I feel my self-esteem is harmed and I get depressed," he said. And, you know, specifying that I'm guessing that this is translated because sometimes things can be lost in translation, right? The eggs and straw sandals can be obtained for free through in-game activities or bought for a minimal price. Xiaoben claims that the gaming company tolerates and allows players to throw these offensive items at each other, profiting from the sales. After several unaddressed complaints to customer service, he filed a lawsuit against the company seeking compensation, though the amount remains undisclosed. A search on mainland social media showed many players sharing their experiences of using items to retaliate. Oh, these ads are throwing me all around. Some even no. Why did it take me to another article? Yeah, maybe it's time for me to get an ad blocker. But I work in marketing, so I like to see ads. I don't want to like block them out. I guess I could toggle it on and off. All right, so back to the players, a discussion on social media, other gamers. Some even discuss strategies for repeatedly throwing eggs, claiming it helped them, quote, save face after losing. One netizen wrote, "No matter how strong a player is, they can still be crushed by eggs and straw sandals." On March 31st, a company representative explained that such items are part of the game, but that restrictions would be implemented. So the company, after this was filed, said, look, we're going to implement some restrictions on this. The firm plans to coordinate with the court regarding Xiaoben's lawsuit. So maybe they'll come to mediation. And again, I don't have any anecdotal experience. I haven't followed any cases over in China. But if it's like the US where they want to trim down questions that could be resolved or mediated without wasting the court's time, the court might be saying like, yeah, if you guys could work something out, that'd be great. Lawyer Jin Xiaodong from Shandong province in eastern China said that eggs and straw sandals are inherently insulting, and the gaming company has a responsibility to maintain order within the game. Another legal expert added that if gaming bullying violates someone's personal rights, the company could be held civilly liable. One online observer said of the case, "Xiaoben is somewhat pitiful, yet also a bit funny. It is time for him to quit the game." And that goes back to it being, they still have a choice. Is it just a matter of choice? And with that question in one country versus another be looked at a different way. Let's see. It doesn't want to let me keep going. Let me put it in read-only mode and let's print it. Let's print this page and read it that way. Let me open this as a readable version. All right, so nope, that didn't solve the problem. Oh well. Okay, it loaded now. On April 24th, a spokesperson from the local government told the media that the case has been resolved satisfactorily. Okay. Interesting. Or this is a different article. All right, so I guess this article's not going to play nice with us, but we got the gist of what was going on there. So back to our first question, we had our debate over, is taco a sandwich? I'm thinking of Joe Tacopina. Is something happening virtually in a game where you have a choice to play the game, but you might not, there's no feature that gives you the choice of turning that particular feature on or off. Where does that issue lie? And I think for me, a big question would be, is the gaming platform, is the gaming company, do they have a terms of service? Do they have some type of policy where they're promising a friendly environment, a safe environment? If something is threatening, it's not allowed on their platform or on their products or services. And can those terms and conditions, would that encompass something like this virtual sandal and egg throwing? Would their own feature violate their promise, their company promises? And could it be an issue that, like what if it's not eggs and sandals, but they change it to something else? Right? So just a big philosophical question there. What are you guys saying? Yeah, Factual Lie just says just play another game, LOL. And this is someone that's winning, right? So he's got the highest ranking position according to this article. He's been playing for years. It's like the choice could be there, but it seems like he doesn't want to make that choice. Let's see. KC Dog Back to the Sandwiches says Uncrustables are the origin of Hot Pockets. Chloe says maybe he just has a really slappable face. And that would be interesting, I don't know. I've never played that game. But I wonder if you pull it up, if he's streaming it, if he's got his face in it at all or not. KC Dog says, yeah, that's definitely abuse of some form. And also, big thank you for the super. KC Dog says, I'd argue that there is a sport where individuals willingly agree to being slapped. Therefore, he has no case. Are you talking about the one power slap competition? Oh my goodness. Yes. Aaron Grimmett with the context here. Good to see you, Aaron. Power slap is a professional sport now thanks to Dana White. Yeah, and it's like you got to stand in this. It's like the terms are kind of like arm wrestling where you have to you have to keep your body fixed a certain way. I think with the power slap, you can't, it has to be one armed, right? You can't use the momentum of your whole body. There's specific criteria, like speed walking. Has anyone in the chat paid attention to speed walking and the strict criteria of how you have to be making a certain amount of contact with the ground? And I think your knees can't come up too high. I would be an awful speed walker. I'm thinking, me as a speed walker, I'd be walking around like this. Never knew those would come in handy for a different purpose besides Atkins. Perfect Peace says, wow, I play a game of spades online where players can throw eggs, tomatoes, or kisses at each other with sound effects, but I don't use it. Ignore it if any are thrown at me. And that kind of reminds me, so before this stream started, if you guys remember a few months ago, maybe it was during the ASAP Rocky trial. I don't think it was during YSL. I think it was with the ASAP Rocky trial. I realized that there was a feature that we could customize on our end on YouTube where we could change those little, I'll click one right now. If you guys are watching live and you see like the little react emojis that animate across the chat, at January, February, I was able to customize those, and now I don't see an option to customize it. So I don't know if they got rid of that. But before this stream, I was going to put tacos and eggs in there. There would have been an opportunity to fly eggs across the screen at me. So YouTube doesn't really have that. But I know, like, well, that's not true. So users, creators like Flesh of the Gods, and Doug is another, well, Doug does his recordings on Twitch and brings it over, but I'm sure he would do the same on YouTube. On the back end, they've set it so things in the chat can trigger on-screen animations and interactions. But YouTube itself doesn't have this type of feature to worry about. But I believe Twitch and Kick have settings like this, where I wonder if that could become a terms of service issue depending on what users are doing compared to what's promised in their terms of service and their conditions. Twitch has already had some high-profile cases that, you know, it looks like they went the settlement route, but when their users are engaging in behavior that's not okay, suspect behavior in their chats, like there's, I guess, opportunities to privately message people, maybe? I don't know. I'm thinking of a case where someone got exposed, a very popular streamer that had deals. They got exposed for having inappropriate messages with someone who's alleged to have been underage, and it was alleged that they were aware that that person was underaged, and it ended up coming to a settlement. But the litigation was aimed at the platform for not preventing that type of behavior, which goes against their terms and conditions. Right? So there are questions here. It's not just like someone whining in a bubble and there's no legal avenue. I mean, you can say you can sue for anything, but you're not going to win. But sometimes there is kind of a weird angle to get there. Usually through the contract, the agreement, the service agreement. Let's see. Tech Clouds, good to see you. Good to see you popping in. Tech Clouds, tell us. Tell us your take on if tacos are sandwiches. Yeah, okay. So Aaron Grimmett says there are all kinds of rules. Your feet can't come off the ground or pivot. And that kind of reminds me, you know, we're in like the prime of basketball season right now. And I don't know if it's just because I'm on X and seeing people point it out and gripe more about the issue. But some of the more contentious moments in basketball are coming down to, was it 3 steps or not? Was someone actually properly pivoting? Did their foot come up and it shouldn't have? So, you know, these are all really, I don't know, I'm sure speed walking is intense, but sometimes the same type of issue with the rule of feet remaining on the ground at least 1 foot. In something like an NBA game, you've got millions of people watching and millions of dollars that are generated from each of the like high profile playoff games. So these rules can make or break something that's actually like extremely significant. Tat says, nope, taco is not sandwiches. Ha 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 ha. Tat Clouds wins. Yes, and happy Cinco de Mayo. That is why we're doing this stream. I know that everybody's got Karen Reed going on. They're probably about to go to their lunch, but I did watch this morning. I thought very interesting, very good cross-examination on the expert that did the serum testing. And not really on the specifics one thing that I thought was interesting, I was watching with Andrea Burkhart. She had about 6,000, 7,000 people in her chat. This was an expert witness that did the serum testing to extrapolate this retrograde analysis to figure out if Karen Reed was, or not to figure out, but to give the data that the state could use to make the legal accusation to charge her with, having her blood over the legal limit while this incident where she's alleged to have hit her boyfriend with her vehicle, she was over the legal limit or not. And Yannetti did the cross-examination, and what I thought was really great is, there's these technical questions that some people are very interested in and can follow very well, but I'd argue that most people can't, or if they try, it gets either too complicated to follow without being able to slow it down. Jurors can't hit pause and rewind like we can on YouTube or on a stream. And he would take these more complicated questions and punctuate them with something that was very common sense. Something that's like kind of on gut instinct, like I'm thinking of Tat Clouds here, like, no, tacos are not sandwiches. He would ask these simple questions like, and, frequent urination can impact this type of reading, right? It would change the reading of whether it was in the extraction stage, where, if you get some type of urine or blood test and your body's trying to expel the residual waste products after processing the toxins, it could be a higher reading because that's your body getting rid of it. And the chat was like, yes, answering these questions. Like, frequent urination can impact this, right? The chat's like, yes. Someone drinking a lot of water could impact this. The chat's like, yes. But each time this question was being asked and the chat was on gut instinct going, yes, in unison, the witness was like, yeah. And it just gets you thinking that sometimes, even when there's a technical exception, even when it's not really that way, what comes off your chest almost as a gut instinct, whether it's right or wrong, can be extremely powerful. And what Yannetti was doing with this expert witness, and he did do a lot of like technical chipping away as well. But when you have a whole chat room kind of in unison, and I will say that I do think Andrea Burkhart's chat is pretty more free Karen Reed than against freeing Karen Reed, at least in terms of has the Commonwealth proven that he was hit by a car, right? Whether that factually happened or not, has the Commonwealth provided evidence that proves that beyond a reasonable doubt? I'm going to say, and I'm part of that group that thinks no, and I think most of her chat is that way. So there is a steer there. But when you have a whole group of people on gut instinct, I would imagine some of the jurors are sitting there the same way. You've got the jury on gut instinct answering questions to an expert witness before the expert witness can answer. That's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. The Ninaverse, good to see you, says, will you be covering the Diddy trial? My apologies if you already answered this. I don't know that I really will. There's a ton of coverage because it is such a high profile case that even though it's not being filmed, did you guys see the footage of the line of reporters trying to get in? Let me pull it up. So it is one of those weird exceptions where even though it's no cameras in that courtroom, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the judge, when trial actually, I know it's jury selection right now, but when we have like day one and witnesses are being put on the stand, opening statements, I wouldn't be surprised if the judge releases the transcripts each day like they did with the Trump trial. And if that's not happening, I'm sure these big news organizations will pay for the transcripts to come out. But yeah, this is the line. And follow Elizabeth Milner. She's been covering this. She doesn't have the following that I would expect. She's done some boots on the ground coverage. Yeah, only 1,000 followers. She's done a lot of great boots on the ground coverage for more cases than just Diddy. Here's Milner. Here's her link in the chat. But yeah, these are all media people waiting to get in, or at least a decent number of media people waiting to get in. So, I mean, I'm sure they have there's limited seats in the courtroom, right? But I'm sure they have like a media area. I mean, this is a New York courthouse. But yeah, so there will be coverage. I won't be following it in detail, I don't believe, unless something really becomes interesting to me. But I am more so over on X than here. I've really enjoyed following the whole Jane Doe, Jay-Z, Sean Carter, not Sean Combs. I've loved watching what's going on with the Jane Doe accusation that came into the Diddy case, also naming Jay-Z. And Tony Busby and his firm were representing the Jane Doe. And Jane Doe has now voluntarily dismissed her case that she filed in New York, in the Southern District of New York. But there's 2 actions ongoing, one in California, one in Alabama, where Jay-Z is taking on the Busby law firm. That's the California case. And then in Alabama, Jay-Z is taking on Jane Doe and the Busby law firm. And Jane Doe has a new attorney representing her in the Alabama case. I looked at her motion to dismiss, and it's miles better, in my opinion, than what I'm seeing being argued in the California case from Tony's side. And that, all things being said, I don't know Alabama's standard for litigation privilege, but California is very, very favorable to the party that allegedly made defamatory statements. California gives a ton of legroom for litigation privilege to extend. So really the cards are stacked in Tony Busby's favor in California, and yet I still think that Robert Schwartz is making great, great arguments on Carter's behalf, on Jay-Z's behalf. In the Alabama case, Jane Doe, I'm happy for her that she has an attorney that seems to be looking out for her. It's my personal opinion that Tony Busby did not ethically represent her, based on what I was seeing in the Southern District of New York case. So I'm happy, even though I might think that she might be complicit in a false accusation, I'm happy to see her have proper ethical representation. So, and Trikisha, that's where I am. I'm not following, just gonna listen to highlights. Of course, I am really interested now that Brian Steele and Nicole Westmoreland have entered the arena, right? So I'm interested in seeing what they want to attack. And I didn't see Trish Renard. There was I think it was JC. Shout out to JC. It was just Steele and Westmoreland walking in, so I don't think that part of their contribution to Diddy's defense is jury selection, but obviously they're here for jury selection. But Trish wasn't there, so where was JC? Yeah, so here you've got Nicole Westmoreland and Brian Steele. Oh, okay, and JC also gave us the context that the New York attorney here, his name is Xavier Donaldson. So that's them walking into court there. Chloe says I'm gonna look for Steele every day. I want to say hi. Yeah, Trikisha, so she was in another video, but it didn't really get the oomph behind it and the news headlines, and you know, a lot of like Daily Loud, those types of accounts on Twitter were sharing that Brian Steele was now representing Diddy. But we didn't really get the same for Nicole Westmoreland. And honestly, I was a bit disappointed. I saw her being mentioned once, but she was referred to, I don't know the exact way, but it bothered me because it was like she was the lady that helped Bruce Harvey. And the way she was introduced, and however I saw the first video clip of her a few weeks ago, it like gave a mention that she was also part of the YSL trial, but it couched her role within like some umbrella role that she was just kind of like a sideline to a different man attorney. And that kind of grated me the wrong way, because she's clearly here not with Bruce Harvey, right? So, and I can see that, Trikisha. I recall that they wanted an African American woman. I didn't know that they were actively looking for one, but I do think, there's a lot of, whether there should be or not. The idea of, the easiest example for me is a complaining witness that happens to be a female. A lot of the time you want to have a female juror. This is just a gendered distinction, right? You don't want a man badgering, a male attorney badgering a complaining witness that happens to be female. Because whether it is or not, that perception to be sympathetic to the female in the witness box with the scary yelling man, like, that could come into play. And again, whether it should or not, it's still a consideration. Thinking of, I think the biggest example there is having Camille Vasquez in Depp v. Heard, again, a civil trial. She got up there and she did cross-examination of Amber Heard. And maybe if a man was asking the same questions Camille Vasquez was, with a scary, bassy, baritone voice, maybe the jury would have seen it a different way. And maybe Amber Heard would have acted a different way. Some of those moments where what came off to me as like snide remarks back to Camille, those moments could have made the jury less sympathetic to Amber Heard, and those moments may not have happened if a different person was cross-examining her. So I didn't hear the reports that they were specifically looking for this, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, your team it's all presentation. Get Tiffany out there. Tiffany's got work on her plate down in Fulton County right now. We need her for Moongtung. If you missed the Moongtung update, we did look at the motion to vacate sentence. Whitaker did agree that the sentencing for count 30 was void, but says that the revocation's still good. The sentencing and resentenced him based on count 1. Tiffany and Jim still have a lot of issues to raise, and I think the manner in which Judge Whitaker issued that order and did the resentencing without holding a hearing and without Moongtung being there in person are adding new issues in this fight for Moongtung. So that's a quick update. You guys know the drill. When I say Tiffany Adams, that's the Fit Lawyer ATL. When I say Jim, that's James Robichard, or Happily Angry Lawyer, or Happily Angry Esquire. So they are the ones, they took this case to help Moongtung pro bono. What we saw in that 19-page motion was the whittled down version, and now I think all barriers are gone. I think they're gonna do the Superman shirt ripping, Superwoman shirt ripping. Maybe that's not appropriate, but you guys know what I mean. Okay, she wants to? All right, I support it. I would love that. The great thing about Tiffany, the Fit Lawyer ATL, is if she were in that courtroom, I know that when she comes out, whether she was there because she's part of the team, I mean, she might not be able to say as much, or if she went as a spectator, I know she would have such good recall of the important things that happened, and she'd be able to explain the significance of it. So that would be awesome. Let's see, the Fit Lawyer. And what I love is that Jim now has a YouTube channel, so I can just link you guys to the Fit Lawyer's YouTube. So there's Fitz. And I don't have to do the, if you don't use X, I'm sorry, but Jim's only on X. He now has his YouTube channel. I can link you to something over here on the same platform. And this is Jim. I'm just realizing, look at his thumbnail. It's probably small. Look at the thumbnail for this video. He has his red marker. I can't hover over it, but I'm talking about this one. It'll start playing if I hover over it. He has a red arrow that says, learn to read this stuff. He's yelling at them. He's yelling. So go follow them. They are great. I think Happily Angry Lawyer has mostly been covering YSL or YSL adjacent content right now. He does have some Karen Reed stuff where he's guested with others. I think he syndicated this with the Young Jerks. But I know he plans to do more cases, so. And then the other thing, right before, and shout out to JC. Make sure you guys, if you are on X, follow JC. I love all the updates she posts. So earlier today, I saw like this live news on Facebook from the Robert Brooks case. That's the inmate that was killed in custody, and there's this video of all these correction officers. Some are assaulting Robert Brooks, others are just standing around, and a bunch of indictments came down, I think over a month ago now. Well, today the first plea came in. And Jay-Z clipped it. So JC.
Guilty to count 2 of the indictment that charges the felony offense of manslaughter in the first degree, and the agreed upon sentence would then be 15 years in state prison along with 5 years post-release supervision, a waiver of appeal, and mandatory state surcharges, and that would satisfy the remaining count contained in this indictment. Is that the people's understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Kafouti, that's your understanding?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Mr. Walrath, is that your understanding of the proposal to resolve these charges, and is that what you want to do here today?
Yes, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Sir, do you now swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may put your hand up. Mr. Walrath, I'm going to ask you some questions now. These are to help me decide if I can accept your plea or not. So if at any time you do not hear a question, you do not understand, or you need a moment to stop and speak further with your attorney, then you have to let me know that, okay? Do you understand by answering my questions and pleading guilty here this morning, you're giving up your right to remain silent and to not incriminate yourself?
Yes.
Have you spoken with your attorney about your case, about pleading guilty, and thereby waiving your right to have a trial?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the services of your attorney?
Yes.
Have you had enough time now to speak with your attorney about your case?
Yes.
The charge you are to plead guilty to pursuant to this agreement is count 2 of this indictment. It charges you with the felony offense of manslaughter in the first degree. That is in violation of penal law sections 125.20 subdivision 1 and also 20.00 as you are charged under an accomplice liability theory. It's alleged here that on or about the 9th day of December 2024, while you were here in the county of Oneida in the town of Marcy, you, along with your co-defendants, acting in concert with each other, being corrections officers, and intending to cause serious physical injury to another person, you did cause the death of that person, that being that you, along with your co-defendants, participated in multiple beatings of incarcerated individual Robert Brooks, which ultimately resulted in that individual's death. Do you admit that all to be true?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, did you want anything further for the elocution?
A few series of questions with the court's permission.
You may go right ahead.
Mr. Walworth, you were assigned to work in the Arsenal area of Marcy Correctional Facility on December the 9th, 2000.
Now this is going to get important because this guy is going to acknowledge and accept and admit that he did in fact engage in assault of Robert Brooks outside before they came inside the room that's in the video, that he was already engaging in assault against Robert Brooks along with 3 others. So that's a pretty big deal. Because now what are those other 3 going to do? Are they going to take it to trial? Or are they going to reconsider accepting a plea?
2024, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you leave your post inside of the Arsenal area on December the 9th against departmental policy and procedures upon the arrival of Robert Brooks?
Yes.
Did you and your fellow corrections officers, Nicholas Kiefer, Nicholas Anzalone, and Robert Kessler, assault Robert Brooks outside of the Arsenal on December the 9th, 2024?
Yes.
During that assault, did you put Robert Brooks in a chokehold against departmental policy and procedure?
Yes.
On December the 9th, while in the emergency room of the Marcy Correctional Facility, Did you and other corrections officers assault Robert Brooks?
Yes.
During that assault, did you strike Robert Brooks about his body?
Yes.
And did you intentionally strike him in his groin?
Yes.
Were you aware at that time that striking an incarcerated individual in the groin is against departmental policy and procedure?
Yes.
Is it correct that you never reported the use of force that was used on Robert Brooks near the Arsenal area at Marcy Correctional?
Yes.
Is it correct that you never reported the use of force that was used on Robert Brooks in the emergency room at Marcy Correctional?
Yes.
You were aware, sir, were you not, that you were required to report any and all uses of force on an incarcerated individual, whether justified or not?
Yes.
And nevertheless, you lied about the use of force used on Robert Brooks on December the 9th, 2024.
Yes.
And sir, at the emergency room, you did nothing to prevent the assault or protect Mr. Brooks. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you realize that these repeated assaults caused serious physical injury to Mr. Brooks and resulted in his death.
Yes.
People are satisfied, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel.
So very important stuff there. He left his post against policy, went outside as Robert Brooks was arriving. You know, he was being transported, and him and 3 other officers already begin their assault on on inmate Brooks outside. Chokehold against policy. Hitting in the groin against policy. So not good, not good. And I guess shout out to him for admitting it. I don't. He was facing murder 2 and man 1, manslaughter in the first. And his plea, he's pleading guilty to manslaughter in the first. He's going to get 15 years to serve in state prison and 5 years parole. I don't really know offhand policies on if he can get out any sooner than those 15 years. So like shout out to him for coming forward, but he was facing a lot more than 15. There's video evidence. There's 3 other people that could potentially snitch on him in that outside moment. So it just seems like maybe he did a risk analysis and said, you know what, let me take the plea because going to trial on this is just not going to happen. So I don't know if this is just like, all right, he's admitting to wrongdoing, or if he's trying to get out on the easier side, on the lighter side of what he could be facing. But that leaves me to question, what about the other 3? His plea could impact all, I think there's more than 12 still facing charges. But I think particularly his factual acknowledgments that he's agreeing to in signing this plea deal, those 3 that were outside with him, I would expect another plea deal to be accepted if it's on the table for one of those other 3 that were outside. Because what are they going to do at trial if this guy has to come testify and say, yes, Kessler and the other 2, they were out there, they helped me with the chokehold, and they were punching him in the groin too, or let me do it. Like, it's done. It's done for them. So, and notice how clean and succinct this little plea colloquy is.
Mr. Walrath, how then do you plead to the second count, manslaughter in the first degree, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
How old are you now, Mr. Walrath?
37.
And you can read and write the English language, correct?
Yes.
You're a citizen of the United States?
Yes.
Do you have any physical or mental problems that could prevent you from understanding what you're doing here today?
No.
Did you consume any kind of drug, medicine, or alcohol before coming to court that could affect your understanding?
No.
You're not currently on any form of probation or parole, are you?
No.
By pleading guilty, you are giving up your right to have a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
At a jury trial, you would be presumed innocent, and you would be entitled to the following rights: to be represented by your attorney, to confront and cross-examine witnesses presented by the government. You'd have the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself. You would have the right, but would not be required, to call witnesses, or you could testify on your own behalf. You would also have the right to require the government to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of 12 people who would have to be unanimous in finding you guilty.
All right, so there's that clip there. I think it was a local CBS station that has, like, it was like a 15-minute, 16-minute hearing, including all the time to gather everyone in the courtroom. They end up giving him 3 months to get his affairs in order. So he has until August 4th to, like, get his life together before he goes and does these 15 years in custody. Which, you know, I don't want to say that I specifically have a problem with people being given time to get their affairs in order, but I would like everybody to have that same opportunity. And it's a bit unusual for me to hear 90 days for someone that was facing murder. They were charged with murder. They plead to manslaughter. So I don't know. And maybe it's a New York thing. Maybe this isn't that unusual. But to me, like, zooming out of New York, of this specific district, to me, it's unusual to hear someone being given that much time. And I would just like, at the very least, for everybody to have that same benefit of the doubt, right? Especially for, like, lesser charges. But yeah. On a more positive note, again, thanks to JC for... JC posts a lot of, like, updates. You know, JC might be a face that you recognize from YSL trial coverage. She's more over on X with her coverage, but she's in the chat across YouTube. But she posts a lot of updates on different news stories as well. So make sure you're following her. Lots of good summaries there. Also, big shout out. Good to see Shannon Alexander in the chat. Good to see you. Happy Monday. Trikisha's laughing at Jim with the red pen. STS says, is a hot sandwich made from, quote, cheese food still a grilled cheese sandwich? Oh, you mean when it's like a Cheese Whiz or like Kraft cheese singles? Like pasteurized product instead of a definitively cheese? Yeah, is it still a grilled cheese sandwich? And really, why is it grilled cheese sandwich? Like, that's another interesting thing about, I think, like, probably English and not the rest of the Romance. Would that be like pain du fromage in French or something like that? Like sandwich of cheese, but here we word it as you're grilling, not the cheese. You're grilling the sandwich that happens to be a cheese sandwich. So we phrase it as grilled cheese sandwich, with cheese sandwich grouped together. We're not grilling the cheese, we're grilling the whole grouping. And that's an interesting thing with the way the English language works, where I think a lot of our sister languages would say grilled sandwich of cheese, because you're grilling the sandwich, and the sandwich is a cheese sandwich. So we've got a whole other rabbit hole of questions here about how we explain things. And yes, how do we define these cheese products that are not really cheese? Great question there. Thank you for opening that rabbit hole. Adventure Aaron, good to see you, says the remaining 3 YSL defendants have a pretrial conference tomorrow, though. That I do believe. Maybe there will be some cameras in the courtroom. If there is, I'll pop live. But I imagine we'll get some updates whether or not there's cameras in the courtroom from, like, Joseph Papp or Shadi Abusad. So depending on how intensive that hearing is, either get together live, or if it's just like, hey, we got together, somebody asked for more time and it was rescheduled, we'll post and see what goes on with that. Let me sign back into the Odyssey portal and check if there's an update today. Because, for example, if we see another hearing scheduled, that means the issue is still being considered. If there's an order, then we'll have an order. There's a good chance that nothing will have popped up on the docket yet, because that hearing was only 2 hours and change, 3 hours and change, 2 hours and change ago, 9:30. All right, so it's still showing me today's, a February hearing. And as an aside, yeah, Turkey ship power tripping gets you this. That's my nice way. Yeah, I always think of like the Abu Ghraib. I'm probably saying it wrong. Because I read more than I hear things out loud, and then I have to say them on screen, and I'm like, I've never had to say that out loud. But Abu Ghraib, grave, and the idea of a whole bunch of people in a position of power seeing somebody else abuse their power, and they don't step up to say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, that's an abuse of your power. And they either not just become like blinders and ignore it, but can become participants in it. And I can tell you this, I would not want to be an employee working in corrections right now. Because to me, it's a natural and justifiable response to not trust any of them. Because look what this grouping did, to the point where they took a man's life. And at the same time, if I'm like, wow, I would never want to work there, I like, it's too much going on, they're power tripping, I would never want to be a part of that. How do you fix that and start attracting the right hires, the right staff? Because who's applying for jobs like this? So how do you even fix the staffing problem? It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, yeah, so I just see this real nisi was them saying that they were going to have a hearing today. So no updates on the civil forfeiture stuff. Again, look for a community post on that. As soon as I see something, I'll share it. Dolly, good to see you, Dolly. Dolly with the hay. Good to see you, Dolly. Are you joining Hella for the stream that she's going to do on Delphi later? I don't know exactly what she's covering with that. I just saw right before I started the stream that they're doing some Delphi stuff. So let us know if you're going to be over there. Shout out to Dolly Talk. And Dolly, again, congrats on your sobriety. So Dolly went sober. He stayed sober. Even though Nick Starro had his Friday panel stream with some drinking and good times going on. Dolly, congratulations on your sobriety and still being able to show up and be a friend and continue to stay sober. That's really commendable. And I admire it. And I drink here and there, but I've been pretty conscientious of, do I really need to drink? Do I want to have a drink? Do I need more than one drink? So while I'm not going full sober, what you're doing is inspiring me, and maybe one day I'll make that decision to not drink anything ever again. So it's really, really cool what you're doing. And Abu Ghraib, how about the White House? Well, so some of the problems here with, I would say, the politics and American politics specifically, is when something crazy is going on, and it really doesn't matter where it's happening or what's happening, there's so much polarity that whether it's happening or not, one side isn't going to want to see it, or one side's going to say, what about the other side? And we never really get this movement that, all right, whether you're representing it to be what it is or not, is it a problem? Could it be a problem? Even if it's not actually happening, and what can we do to stop it? And I'm thinking of the Martin versus United States case. That was... I thought it was so refreshing to hear the Supreme Court, again, this is a different branch, I'm going into the judiciary here. Although the question is, what should the federal government be responsible for when when citizens have their house wrongly raided by the FBI? So here's Martin v. If you guys, I totally recommend going and checking out the motion in this case. This family has been fighting this for 8 years. I try to make light of it and joke that Viverito would never let them go to the wrong address. She knows too well. But it is a serious issue. And with oral arguments last week on Tuesday, the Supreme Court justices, in unison, just seemed dumbfounded by the government's argument here. And I get it, we're in the judiciary branch there. This is not the other branch. It's not legislative or executive. But it's really refreshing to see an issue where it's citizen versus government, right? We boil it down. This is government has responsibility when there's a wrongdoing against citizens. It's really nice to see unison across the political alignments, across the aisles. I don't know if that's how you word it with SCOTUS, because they all sit together. There's no aisle. But it was really, really nice. So if you guys are looking for some optimism and some good times, I watched this over with Potentially Criminal and Uncivil Law guested as well. I think for the whole stream, if I'm not mistaken. But you can also just watch or re-listen to the oral arguments through the Supreme Court website. I watched it with commentary. And Sean has very astute commentary. He's a criminal defense attorney that used to be a prosecutor. Has a lot of like trivial knowledge of the law. Takes interest in a lot of SCOTUS cases. Appeals are Kurt with Uncivil Law's interest as well. So he is very astute with that specific subject matter. So if you do want commentary, I think it was a great pair to go through the oral arguments with. So here's the link to Potentially Criminal stream on that. And for the Karen Reed folks, Potentially Criminal did a stream on Turtle Boy's bond revocation hearing, and Turtle Boy was in the chat, Sleuthy was in the chat, so that ended up being a whole party. I think that was Friday or Saturday night. With that being said, guys, the last thing I had that was on my radar, thanks to Idiot Wind and also Chloe Albert's Revenge, is the story of John Giuca. And I still don't know Anna Siga Nicolazzi. I don't really know how to say this prosecutor's name, but whatever. Whatever. We'll just say Anna. There is this case, and I haven't gotten to do a deep dive enough to look at it, but I wanted to make sure it's on your radar. A familiar face, Mark Bederow, is representing John Giuca in his fight for exoneration. John Giuca was convicted like 2 decades and change ago. And a few years ago, he had his conviction overturned, and then a higher court reinstated it. And if you ask me, I get it, the whole argument, someone getting off on a technicality. But isn't it interesting when you hear of something like that? Doesn't it just seem like reasonable doubt? If there's something to overturn someone's conviction, isn't there at least a little bit of chance that there's reasonable doubt in play? So John Giuca's fight is still ongoing. And I started to read the decision that reversed the reversal of his conviction. But I really haven't gotten that deep into it. But I think it's really interesting. I would love to talk about it more. There's Bederow right here. But I thought we could just read this front page. Here's the website that we're looking at. So we'll get some background context, and then maybe we can schedule some lives where we look at the appeal arguments and what's continuing to go on. What I thought was really cool is that his mom, John's mom, played the long game and like did some like undercover vigilante work, and whether you support that or not, I think it's cool to see a mom fight for her child's innocence. She got to know a juror in the case and was like hanging out with him. I don't know if she poses someone that could be a romantic interest. I'd love to read a little bit more about it. But she ended up getting a recording of this juror in the trial where John was convicted, saying that there was some funny business going on with deliberations. So lots of interesting stuff from what I've seen with a cursory overview. So to get you guys there, a quick intro: A Travesty of Justice in Brooklyn. John Giuca was wrongfully convicted of the 2003 murder of Mark Fisher. In September 2003, John was a college student studying at the prestigious John Jay University in New York City. But just 2 years later, his life would grind to a screeching halt when he was sentenced to 25 years to life for a crime he did not commit. Make this a little bigger. Well, now I'm blocking it, so let me move myself up here. Prosecutor Anna Siga Nicolazzi appointed herself judge and jury, this is strong language, in order to win a conviction at all cost. She appeared in drug court alongside a drug-addicted jailhouse informant. So we've got another common theme, right? We've got a jailhouse informant coming into the picture here, facing years in prison. That junkie's testimony, again, this is loaded language, was used to seal Giuca's conviction when Nicolazzi used him as the trial's first witness, hiding the truth from the judge, the jury, and Giuca. So they didn't disclose this. And this was part of the court that reversed his conviction. This was something that they took into account, that this was a Brady issue. The addict later came forward to apologize to John, admitting he cut a deal with the prosecutor and lied because he was scared of going to prison. 2 other witnesses came forward as well, stating under oath that they were threatened and coerced by Nicolazzi. She is also accused of burying a recording of her interview with the jailhouse snitch who said Giuca didn't kill Mark Fisher. There are also suspicious questions surrounding other witnesses in this case. After 18 years in prison and 12 rubber-stamped appeals that would have led to automatic reversals in any other case. And isn't this a familiar theme? And it's making me question this line of thinking, right? This wouldn't happen in any other case or with any other judge. But I feel like I keep saying that. And I think the disease, the problem, is bigger than just one bad case. Because I keep seeing this line, this wouldn't happen in any other case or sometimes with any other judge. I keep seeing it. Attorney Mark Bederow's integrity, hard work, and dedication, as well as his belief in John's innocence, paid off. And in February 2018, an appellate court unanimously overturned John's conviction and ordered a new trial. However, Judge Danny Chun still denied John's bail, despite no physical or forensic evidence linked John to the crime. No eyewitnesses ever linked John to the crime. The prosecution had no murder weapon, no clear motive, and admittedly, no idea what actually happened. That's a common theme too, I think. The physical evidence pointed away from John. Initial suspects gave conflicting statements and changed their stories multiple times in significant ways. John was tried and convicted in 2005 and sentenced to 25 years to life. Less than a month later, Charles Hines went on to secure a 5th term in office after a hotly contested primary. The same year John was convicted, Nicolazzi received the prestigious Thomas E. Dewey Medal from the New York City Bar Association. Prosecutors getting the bar award. Followed by an astounding $43,000 raise. The evidence is clear and documented. John Giuca never got a fair trial. So they're going to list some organizations here that are backing John Giuca's request for, getting his conviction overturned, getting a fair trial, retrial. Why is it cutting off like that? Okay, it's a little funny. These organizations, something, suppression of favorable evidence. But you've got big names here. You've got the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, so think GACTL, 50 states. Innocence Project, ACLU, New York Civil Liberties, New York State Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, so there's your New York version of GACTL. Legal Aid Society, Bronx Defenders, Center for Appellate Litigation, Office of the Appellate Defender, and Chief Defenders Association of New York, and Center on the Administration of Criminal Law at NYU School of Law. So lots of backing here. We got Bennett Gershman here in a letter to District Attorney Ken Thompson back in February of 2014, saying, quote, ADA Nicolazzi displayed a cynical disregard for the truth in her presentation of the evidence. A prosecutor is ethically forbidden to play fast and loose with the evidence in the way that ADA Nicolazzi did. John Giuca, in my opinion, did not receive a fair trial. The integrity of his conviction was corrupted by an evidentiary foundation built on false evidence and further undermined by the misconduct of the prosecutor, who knowingly presented perjured testimony and vouched for its truthfulness. So, and these were, when we were doing the Courtney Clenny stream this weekend, this is how the conversation started. You guys mentioned the podcast Crawl Space. If not Idiot Wind, it may have been Chloe Albert's Revenge. They've also got the Wrongful Conviction podcast here that did some episodes on John Giuca's case. Lots of stuff here, backwards story. But what I think is interesting are these. There's a lot of stories that focus, a lot of coverage that focuses on Anna Nicolazzi. Maybe it's under updates. So she's got, this other story here. We've got a different prosecution. Another Nicolazzi prosecution falling apart. So, and again, I have to deep dive into this, but I thought you guys might be interested in it because do we have a prosecutor that's really going out there and winning by any means necessary? We've got this story here. Could she face a day of reckoning? And if she did something malicious to win this prosecution against Juka, what other cases may she have done the same thing in? Wait, this prosecutor? Hold on. Okay. The prosecutor had a show. I was like, there's no way. So Chloe says Bederow went into this in depth on someone's stream a while back. So YouTube as opposed to one of the podcasts that's featured there. And then she went on to have a show on Oxygen. That's cool. Because again, it's different when someone's going and telling the story. For a prosecutor to go on and I mean, I guess technically case closed, but I would still say it's not closed if it's caught up in appeals. Oh my god, it is the prosecutor. No. Is this from it? This looks like it could be a still from it. Or maybe from like an interview, but doesn't this look like a dramatic background type scenery that's behind Anna in this picture? Oh boy. Oh boy. So there's that, you guys. That's my roundup that I've got for the Cinco de Mayo celebratory day. Start with tacos and get to some questions about, is it really a win if you had to cheat to get there? If you had to play dirty to get there, is a win a win? Philosophically speaking. So there we go. Where are you guys? I was watching with Andrea Burkhart this morning. I might go watch with Millionaire Mel. I need to get some good laughs in, and her chat is hysterical. She is hysterical. Tomorrow I want to go check out Corgi-san. I haven't hung out with her since like Johnny Depp days. I watched some sidebar stuff with her, so it's been like a year and a half. But she's also doing Karen Reed live. Where are you guys gonna go? This is the shout out time. There's so many options for Karen Reed. I'm trying to bounce around. It's just impossible, but I love everybody covering the Karen Reed case. I try to watch with like 4 or 5 different people and then still can only make it to like 3. Let's see. I'll set this up to redirect over to Mel. But you guys know Andrea Burkhart is covering. I think AV is live. I'm sure Melanie Little, Emily D. Baker. For later coverage, it is Monday, so Ian Runkle will probably be live later tonight. Potentially Criminal will probably do a recap tonight. The lawyer, I guess, does his recaps at night, but I always catch them in the morning. Lots of people. So Chloe's going over to Melanie Little. Justice served, yes. Oh, and if you guys are interested in Justice served, just made me think about that because of the press access issues. There was a hearing this morning about the buffer zone thing. Where's Mark Randazza? Let's see. Oh my God, I swear he posted a copy of the filing. Well, Mark Randazza is the attorney fighting the buffer zone issue with the court, where there's like a buffer zone where like the press can't be that close, the crowds can't be that close. I swear he posted his filing. I should have downloaded it, but I guess I didn't and I don't see it. But yeah, if you're interested in that, like, it's not really an ancillary issue. It's just not happening on the day-to-day feeds of the Karen Reed trial. It's like a separate matter, right? It's a proceeding involved in the case, but it's not being filmed in these, you know, juries present type streams. That's going on. I should have downloaded it. I'll have to find a copy and I'll share it as a post. But yeah. So Justice Served is another one to watch. Let me link to them. They're often outside talking to people before and after court as well. So they're live right now. So they're, especially if you bounce around, they're great to watch during lunch because they might have additional content to cover. All right, and let's get over, when this ends, this will be going over to Millionaire Mel for Karen Reed coverage, but if you are hopping around, maybe see you guys in a chat somewhere, and next time we get together. Again, thanks for all the love and joining me today, you guys. I hope everyone has a good one. Bye, guys.